Yeah, I think, first off, I want to thank Hillsdale for doing this and for having us tonight. And if nothing more than you're seeing the broad spectrum of sartorial between Michael Anton and myself. You don't own anything, you're not going to own anything. Isn't that Hayek's The Road to Serfdom? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is what they want. This is what they don't want anybody to really be, not just a property holder, but actually be involved in the ownership or the exploitation of assets. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And that mantra they put out, you're not going to own anything and you're going to be happy. You don't want to own anything. They try to get that mindset. If you think about the economic and financial transformation, and today I brought my copy, which I always carry of the Financial Times, British government's about to fall. I mean, it's already half fallen. Trusts will probably be gone by the end of the week because of mistakes of trying to go back to a Thatcher-Reagan playbook that doesn't exist. The possibility of that does not exist in this current world because of what happened in the Great Reset. I think we added, overall in the world, $50 trillion of debt in the United States. I mean, think about it. From the financial crisis, we had before the financial crisis, we had $6 trillion on the total face amount of debt. We had $880 billion on the Federal Reserve. Today, we have $31 trillion face amount of debt and $9.5 trillion on the Federal Reserve. We have $40 trillion of debt. All this was done at zero interest rates, and today you're going to start paying real interest rates. So quite shortly, we're going to be paying $1 trillion of interest every year on this debt, and it's going to be a $1.5 trillion deficit, add on another $1 trillion. The game can't continue. It's not sustainable. I think people basically kind of the World Economic Forum and the central banks and what they call fiscal domination of these out of control politicians, particularly politicians that believe in the administrative state. And what I see that the Great Reset is around is just a broader version of the administrative state that already controls essentially the United States, because we've created this kind of fourth branch of government that is everywhere. And Michael knows this very well from his time on the National Security staff, or the national security apparatus that is very prominent in our own government. When you talk about Davos, I think you have to think exactly what it is. In the third week of January of 2017, there are two speeches given. One was in Davos on Wednesday, and it was by Xi, right? In the Financial Times, The Economist, everybody. This thing, this guy's coming, he's amazing. He came and he laid out his vision of a new world order, and that was China as the manufacturing center, and it would be, markets and the rest of the countries would be commodity producers and make component pieces, and they'd be end markets. And that this was going to be the system in the future. And the only problem the Financial Times pointed out in his speech was these populists, this rising populists. These guys were a problem. And Trump gave the speech 2 days later. People remember it as the American Carnage speech, but if you look at that, that was really a defense of the Westphalian system, the nation state as the basic unit. So when Michael talks about this system they thought up, there's clearly something has been evolving by the work of NGOs and these governments and the central banks, whatever. But Michael makes a very interesting point. Davos is just not the billionaires. That's what kind of gets the glamour, the flying the big jets. It's also the factotums. It's the apparatchiks. Now remember, the apparatchiks, you have all the top and hedge fund managers, the commercial banks, the money managers, the asset managers. You have all the big accounting firms. You have McKinsey and Booz Allen, Boston Consulting Group, all the big consulting firms. You have all the top law firms, right? You have all business media is all there, right? Financial Times, CNBC, Fox Business, Bloomberg. You also have all the major papers. They're all there. They're all there. They're all there. So she gives a speech, and they literally saying, this is the plan. This thing has got such clarity and such brilliance, we can understand this. And they're cheering, right? And holding him up as the example. And a couple of days later, Trump's a barbarian. And she's right. The problem we have is these populists and these nationalists. And if you think about it for a second, this is 17. Now, all those people do different things, but they're all in just one business. They're in one industry. and that industry is the information business, whether it's a hedge fund or money manager or the media or the lawyers or the consultants. They're all in, they monetize it differently, but all in the information. It all comes back to the railhead of information. And this is the inside of the insiders. This velvet rope after velvet rope after velvet rope. And when you finally get there to be Davos man, you've made it, right? Now think about it. You've got the Uyghurs in the concentration camps. You have the Falun Gong. You have Lao Beijing with the highest suicide rates of these factories. The young girls are brutally raped and tossed aside. Huge. You have the underground house Christians you have there. It is a dictatorship. The Chinese Communist Party is a dictatorship from Tibet all the way up to Manchuria, as bad as Hitler's. And they know this. They know this. And they don't care. Because the business model, they can see the business model. So then, after we have the great year of 2019, when the pandemic hits, it's so obvious they're making moves to never let a crisis go to waste. And look, it's going to take congressional investigations and a lot of effort. We'll get there to find out exactly what happened in the labs, who funded what's the bioweapons program, all that. And that'll all come in time. But we do know that they use this, right? They use this to take what they're trying to do to the next level. And that's not a conspiracy theory. You can actually see the receipts every time. And I think it's the power. When Michael first came and talked about the book, what I liked about it, it was not as Michael said, that just to describe something, it's against it. Here is really the beginning of I think the intellectual challenge to this system, which is all-encompassing, right? Because, it was a Tertullian and the church heresies you had against. You had the Nietzsche against Wagner. You've had a tradition of thinkers coming together and saying, hey, we see what's out there and we see what's developing, but we're going to be the anchor. We're going to be the rally point to do this. And look, the book got up as high as number 100. It's very tough for an anthology, right, to do that. I think it's number one, like tonight, in political philosophy, ahead of the Communist Manifesto, right? This thing really, if pushed properly, with classes and descriptions and the type, under one cover, you have such an array of thinkers and people that know the details. And Goldman's thing's amazing on this because the financial calamity, and we are heading towards a global financial crisis, because now the debt is out of control. You saw that in the British government. I mean, she comes out today, we're going to cut, hopefully the bond market and the pension funds won't implode. But she's changed British life. Why? She had a playbook that made sense to a certain group of thinkers that just not related to after the Great Reset, right? Now the Great Reset has changed things. It's changed the United Kingdom. It's changed it here. Remember, the victory we're going to have on the 8th is not a poisoned chalice, but there are going to be some very hard and tough decisions to be made. And in the lame duck session, it's going to be an orgy like nobody's ever seen before they get out of town. And then next year, because it's not sustainable. The Federal Reserve's not going to be able to just continue to print money. Nobody's buying the bonds. Nobody wants the treasuries. You just can't continue to print and print and print with $3.5 trillion deficit. So the world has definitely changed. And these people have a program. And so when they put out a marketing message that says you're not going to own anything, the first thing I think about is, God, Hayek was right. This is the road to serfdom. And particularly for people under 35 years old, they're trying to get that whole mentality in. So I think the book's an incredible start, but it's just a start. And I think that's why it's great that Hillsdale and other people are involved in Claremont, because now we need to galvanize this core of intellectual heavyweights and then spread that word out there and make sure that people understand what this is. And remember, first thing you gotta do is name it, to be able to name it and point it. And they can't just sit there and say, oh, you're a bunch of conspiracy theory wingnuts and you got the tinfoil hat on. No. This is quite obvious. It's there, evident of what's happening. And the awakening of the American people to many facts, and particularly after congressional investigations are come, is going to change politics. I mean, the inflection point for really people being totally awakened is coming, and I think that's what 2024 is going to be, and that's why this is going to be such an important and seminal document as kind of the start and the thing that we can fire off the football with.